At one point, partnered with a friend of mine who is a dentist, and we ran a business, probably a 1% type practice. We were doing 3 million a year with one doctor, one hygienist. I spoke to an AI bot the other day, and I thought it was a real person. I decided not to buy another house. Instead, I bought a commercial property with that money, and now I'm renting. But too many people believe that wealth is just a financial thing.
So I would like to or introduce to the Wealthy Dentist podcast family, Craig Villarreal, who is going to bring to the table his sales skills. Now, I know some people say that when I say people, I'm talking about dentists. They don't like the whole word sales, but if you're not selling, you're not making any money, period. Right? And so I'm sure he could talk about that a lot better than I can. But I mean, you are a salesperson, whether you believe that or not. Either you're going to do that or you're going to sink. I'm saying that personally, okay? That's just for me. Now, he's gonna fill in the blanks. You know, can you join me in giving a warm welcome to Craig Villarreal? Thank you so much, Craig, for joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate it, man.
Yep. Thanks for having me on. And yes, sales is one of my superpowers. I'd say relationships is the other.
Right.
But gosh, 29 years in dentistry now. I've performed a lot of different tasks in dental
Mm.
and sales, of course, what Mark Cuban would say, sales cures all.
Mm.
So I think that's important. I think it's important to know that we are in sales. I'm in sales inevitably, including with Vision Dental Partners. I do mergers and acquisitions or business development. And so while I do love to build relationships, I also like to sell. I love to build relationships, partner with people, and grow businesses, grow production, grow revenue, scale businesses, increase value, all those things. And so, yeah, who doesn't like to win? I don't, you know, I mean, I've taken some on the chin. I've had my losses, but winning is much more fun for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And as we move through, I mean, who was that? Uh, Dr. Raj, I had him on a couple times
I
back.
love Dr. Raj.
Yeah, he was saying, like as we move through our journey, you're going to have your wins and you're going to have your challenges. You keep the same mindset when you're winning and when you're having your challenges. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. That's just I mean, I've heard, gurus of meditation, they speak of those kinds of things, just keeping everything balanced, and you have to. I so agree with that. So you also were in the dental space as an owner. Can you talk about that for a minute?
So I've been in dental 29 years. I've worked my way up to private practice partner ownership. At one point, partnered with a friend of mine who is a dentist, and we ran a business, put that on autopilot and did very, very well. We were probably a 1% type practice. We were doing 3 million a year with one doctor, one hygienist.
Wow.
And that's big. That's big for a dental practice.
Yeah.
So, for us, that was a lot of fun. It just felt very routine to me, and it felt like we had it on autopilot. And I was just more curious about learning a multi-practice and group practice. And so I dissolved that partnership, went into a group practice, and got a minority owner stake in a larger group of 43 locations. And yeah, I mean, at the time, I think it was like 11 locations or 12 locations. We grew it to 43. But the multi practice and group practice is where I wanted to learn. And it was more about the challenge, right? I could have easily stayed in private practice and made a ton of money and just, you know, said, hey, listen, I'm going to do this for a while and retire and I'm good. But it wasn't about the money. It was literally about the challenge. It was like, what's going to challenge me? What's going to get me up on Sundays where I'm like, I can't wait to go to work on Monday.
Mhm.
There's a lot of challenges ahead, and I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get uncomfortable, and I'm going to grow.
Mhm.
And so multi-location did that for me. And believe me, it's challenging a lot of people out there, including PE today, right? I think a lot of PE companies are figuring out these are a lot harder to run than they anticipated. It's a tough, tough job. I mean, Eric Roman just spoke about how tough it is to run operations. And when you're talking about sales and Dr. Raj and mindset, right? How do you continue to have these dentists increase their skill set in sales. I don't know what I could tell you that probably a Grant Cardone book couldn't tell you, but you continuously have to work on your verbiage and your bedside and your skill. Those skill set, those soft skill sets are going to make you a successful dentist. Like Dr. Roman said, it's not the millimeters or the prep that you make around that crown that's going to make you wealthy. It's literally how can you let people know that you care about them, you're authentic, they trust you, they want to be served by you. And those doctors are making the most with their time and their finances.
Yeah, yeah. And Brad takes that position as well. I mean,
Huge.
yeah,
Huge. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, Brad is our clinical director and mentor for all of our practices. And he's putting an entirely new focus on it. The same as Dr. Raj, Dr. Brad is cutting back from the chair.
yeah.
Brad's getting into the practices, into Vision Dental Partners, and he's working with doctors shoulder to shoulder, doing the coaching, doing the soft skills, watching the clinical skills, making sure that not only does the soft skills does that go well, but also the clinical. I mean, you listen, you could probably get by with doing pretty poor dentistry and be an amazing connector, but someone's going to start to figure out, oh, okay, this isn't matching up. Like our clinical needs to improve. So, really, we want to marry the two. We want to make sure that we have good chair side and good clinical skills. And that's
Mhm.
part of Brad's mission right now is just getting out to Vision Dental Partners and doing that shoulder to shoulder mentoring, which I know is huge right now, especially Dr. OG. He has another podcast. He talks about that all the time. He's like, listen, if you're going to say you're a group dental DSO and you provide support, don't phone it in. Don't phone in your support with a text message or a phone call. Like, come see me, come sit down, be
Mhm.
right next to me, show me how to do this,
Mhm.
and give me the tips and tools and all the tricks.
Yeah, that hands-on mentorship is there's nothing like it. You can't compare it to anything. And people, I mean, it just resonates with most people that want to really learn. They want to get, that hands-on mentorship right then and, as soon as they possibly can, so that they could be as good as, uh, I
The
mean,
Brads of the world, the Dr. Rajas of the world, right?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's tough when you get someone who's ultimately over your clinical advancement, and I'm just going to use the phrase phoning it in.
Mm,
If you phone it in, literally phone it in,
mhm.
it's a very lazy way to say, hey, listen, hope you're doing well. Things are good. Good luck.
Right.
And
Here's
yeah,
the keys. Here are
and
the
you're just
keys.
like, well, I'll be at work tomorrow doing the same thing. I don't know if I guess I'm getting better. I don't know.
Yeah. So tell me, as you move through, if you were to choose like some of the most challenging pieces out of operations, what do you think the top three would be?
That's a great question, and this is probably varied all over the map. But 3 and 4 years ago, I was talking about complete front office automation for a very long time, just because we were a larger group coming out of COVID, and we just could not get people to come back to work, right?
Oh yeah.
So here I am. I'm part of the ownership, the recruiting, the sales, operations, and I have to jump back in and be an office leader because we don't have anybody manning the phones. We don't have anybody manning the offices. So I come back, I'm an office manager. So I am taking phone calls, making phone calls out, doing confirmations, insurance breakdowns, selling treatment chairside. And so, early in that adoption, I said, oh my gosh, if we can't get people to come back, we've got to figure out how to automate the front desk.
Right.
And somebody out there that's doing it really, really well, Smile Obsessions, Dr. Patel, completely
Yes.
automated front desk. Now, I was talking about this 3 and 4 years ago, and I'm no innovator. I know this was happening because I got the idea from somebody else. But if you were to ask me what the challenges are and what the potential for a future looks like, is I wouldn't call it a completely autonomous, AI front desk with just kiosks, but certainly there will be room to let one person go from that job, right? Maybe two. Start to shrink down the front desk and automate more processes and kiosks up front, but having still someone there to greet, assist people with kiosks, assist people with questions. I don't think that's ever going away. Brad would say we need more people up at the front desk. I'm saying the future might be, and it could be, right? I think he even says, hey, we're probably 10, 15 years from that. It's going to happen. But what we're doing now is literally just making sure that we have great people at the front desk, greeting, smiling, problem solving, all those things. But that's an area that's going to need some attention is that front desk and the staffing issues and how to automate that appropriately.
Yeah, Brad is very, very I mean, I should say he's very focused on that chairside manner
Yes.
throughout throughout the clinic, the office, I should say. Um, and I understand it, but as you mentioned, ultimately that's going to have to take a shift, and you're probably going to want to train some people up if you can to do other work within the operations uh, area department, if you will, to keep it going like a well-oiled machine. Would you say?
Yeah. And if you want to tie it back to wealth management, I mean,
Oh,
imagine,
yeah.
yeah, imagine how salaries have gone up. We're having to pay people at the front desk
Hmm.
in excess of five and even $10 more an hour than we were 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So that gap creation, right? It gets a lot smaller and smaller whenever you need margins to be a lot more broad. You need to have more revenue,
Hmm.
more EBITDA, all those things. But it's tough when you're overstaffing, overpaying. And by the way, part of your staffing is sometimes probably a PIA fee. It's a pain in the ass fee where you're saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you an extra $1 or $2 more than the market just so that you don't leave."
Mm.
Like I don't want to have to deal with turnover in
Yeah,
recruiting. So,
yeah, yeah.
t tie that problem back to really the source. And yeah, I mean, it's coming. I think it's inevitable. I think it'll get there, and people are already doing it and professionalizing it. So that's part of it. I believe that there is a much bigger piece. And listen, I don't know Steve Thorne personally, but the guy's done a ton for group dentistry and probably just dentistry in general to really fight for medical billing in
Mm.
dentistry.
Hmm.
We have dental billing. We don't have a ton of advancements in medical billing. There are
Hmm.
some softwares out there that will help you with maybe some CDT 10 codes and figuring out how to tie dental codes into medical codes, dental high blood pressure or liver disease or whatever it is that we can figure out for the patient's medical history and tie that into a piece that's medically able to bill. That's going to be a game changer. It doesn't have a lot of attention on it right now. There's a couple of softwares out there. I do know that, probably Denticon with Planet DDS and Quest Dent are two big players that come to mind that do have a piece integrated that says, hey, if a dental patient comes in, collect their medical insurance because there is a possibility that we could bill their medical as well. So those are two. If those haven't been talked about, they are today. Here we are.
Right, right. Yeah. And
I'm
then
br-
very, very
I'm
extremely
bringing it.
difficult pieces, then that could be a challenge, right? And a few wealth transfers if we don't take care of it sooner than later, right?
Yeah, when you talk about wealth, and if you know a little bit about dentistry, a sinus lift, where you need to get bone put into your sinus area so that you can get implants put in to restore some teeth, that as a dental procedure might cost you $2,600, $2,800. If that is related to a medical billing procedure that you can tie into based on health history and the jawbone, right? It's not teeth, it's jaw. I mean, the payment could be upwards to $8,000 for that sinus graft.
Wow.
So, yeah, why not tie in this medical piece, especially when people are dealing with so many medical issues that have a lot of initial and inceptive problems just from your oral health.
So what does it take to make those changes? What is that, regulations, or what is that? What is the problem?
There's some brilliant people out there working on this legislation. I know that there's a guy by the name of Gary I think he's real close to Steve Thorne and Pacific Dental. Um, his last name slipping my mind, but they're working on a lot of legislation to figure out how we can get more medical and whole health, whole body health brought into this industry because we've been using the same insurance benefits and fees since like the 1980s.
That's a long
Um,
time.
So you're talking about this wealth. I mean, people think dentists are just crushing it and making a tons of money, and we're not. We're being restricted more than we're being advanced.
Mm.
And we're behind. We're probably 7 years behind on medical for all billing purposes, all AI purposes, and so we're getting there. I mean, metrics weren't a thing for a long time, and here we are. We're metric crazy. We've got all kinds of metrics and dashboards that we can show you trends. So there's going to be more advancement in those two fields, and I'll call it now.
Okay, I mean, I can see where those right there would like change the dental industry drastically for the better over time. Yeah, so when you decided to so you did say when when you sold your companies, you went into operations, and now that you're into operations, and you've been doing this for a little while now, and you feel really comfortable. But I'm sure there's got to be a few things technologically that that you would like to see change in the future. I know you spoke a little bit on that. Anything else out there that you see that comes to mind?
If we're replacing front desk with AI and automation,
Mm.
I would only make the assumption that we better have some pretty good bots on the phones
Mm.
or call centers. So do call centers actually grow in this next decade,
That's a
or
good.
do they shrink because of the advancements of
Yeah.
AI bots?
Yes.
So it's a good question to say what happens. Because for us, if we were to automate more at the front, put some kiosks, have one person versus three, I would want a call center to be able to handle inbound, outbound phone calls, live people, at a fraction of the cost of having two people up front, right? Versus, I don't know. Or does it happen so that these AI bots, and I spoke to one the other day, or I spoke to an AI bot the other day, and I can't remember, it was an insurance call, and I thought it was a real person. I'm just going back and forth. I'm talking to this person on the phone. I hung up and I looked at my wife and I said, I think that was a bot. I can't confirm that it was a bot, but I said, it was too perfect. The enunciation, the verbiage, it was just, there was no, it was so crisp. And I just thought, I just spoke to a robot. So that's scary.
Yeah, it is, man.
That's an advancement right there.
Yes, yes. So, of course, whoever's on whatever human organization was on the other end trained that bot to do exactly what it wanted it to do. And that's the piece that a lot of people don't seem to have a good grasp on, would you say?
Yeah, I listen, anything IT, computers, AI, way above my head. I took one computer class in college, and my professor said, unplug it and plug it back in. Fixes everything. That's about as much as I know
I remember
about
that.
computers.
Turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah,
Right?
but you said something earlier that I thought was really interesting when you talked about, when we spoke about exiting my company and, moving, right? I sold my house, I sold the business. Something that you alluded to was, the wealth generation piece of saying, what do you do with that, right? When you cash out your home, you cash out your business, what next? And so, I wanted to just touch on that for a minute and tell you that the thing that got you really excited and hopefully us connected was I said, listen, I decided not to buy another house. Instead, I bought a commercial property with that money, and now I'm renting. And so my plan is to buy another commercial property and continue to rent, generating wealth, right? So I bought my first commercial property with that cash. I still have investments and other things, right? Like stocks and IRAs and those kinds of things. But now I've got this commercial asset that's paying me rent every month from tenants. And so, for the first 2 months, I think I carried it. But after that, renters came in, they're servicing the whole thing. I make a small amount of money on it. It's more of a long-term investment. And my wife said, "Gosh, we should buy a home." And I was like, "No, let's buy another commercial property because, this thing is making us money." So that was part of the wealth piece that if I were to go back or tell myself or anybody who's listening is to truly invest in things that are going to make you money, versus these depreciating assets, whether it's cars, clothes, listen, I love all the good things too. I've got nice watches and shoes, all the things. Again, I believe there's a balance. You and I talked about this earlier, is that you can't rip out all the money and grow. You can't rip out all the money and invest. You also don't want to invest so heavily that you never enjoy your life. And there's a good book that is about, I think the title is Die with Zero.
Hmm.
Die with zero. Somewhere in there, there's a good balance. But man, you've got to make some smart choices with your money early on and not just live, you know, to the hill, like just buying up everything and driving the nicest stuff. And that's where, we've talked about vulnerability and certain doctors, that might have the outward appearance of having a lot of wealth, but possibly don't. And so just make wise investments, investments that are going to get you some passive income, some generational wealth, whatever that mean to you. And what does wealth even mean? Like, I would love to touch on that. That's a big, big thing that I wanted to hit on your podcast today.
Oh, that you asking me? That's a good question. You asking me that question? Oh wow, we
Well,
gonna flip this, right? I love it. You
well,
know,
I have an answer. I have an
okay,
answer,
okay.
but too many people believe that wealth is just a financial thing,
Hmm.
you know? And if you've ever done any travel outside of the United States, Ward, then you've gone to Mexico, South America, Europe, Italy, wherever, it doesn't really matter. You'll find some of the wealthiest people are the poorest people on earth. And when I say wealth, it's not just financial. People just automatically go to financial, right? But when you see people who are extremely happy, extremely free from, the bonds of the economy and growth and scale, and like, man, family number one is a huge blessing and freedom and wealth,
Hmm.
and whether you believe or not, I believe God, God is an absolute,
Hmm.
place of wealth and freedom.
Indeed.
And if you can live in a place where, and some might even say on the God piece that it's internal. It's like, hey, I found peace through God. But you might find peace through finding yourself. Maybe that's another like a metaphor for saying, "Hey, I found peace within." And so I really don't care what everyone else is doing out there. I don't care that Jeff Bezos has, a 20,000 square foot living room. You know what Jeff Bezos and I have in common?
Okay.
This is the Amazon owner, right?
Hmm.
I read an article. Jeff Bezos gets up in the morning and he walks to his favorite place to get coffee. Guess what I do in the mornings? I walk to a place where I like to get coffee. He and I do the same thing in the morning. He walks to get coffee. I walk to get coffee. Okay. Like, does that guy have a gym membership and a personal trainer? Maybe. Guess what? I have access to a gym and a personal trainer. Does he go to the movies? Does he go on a boat? Does he, whatever it is, right? There is a wealth social gap that is closing. And I'm not speaking financially, but from a social experience, there is nothing out there that you don't have access to that somebody with a million or multi millions of dollars doesn't have access to, right? Like there are certain things. I mean, listen, once you get a private plane and you've got a few accommodations, then but you think about way back in historic days when you had kings and queens and medieval times, right? Was that 780? Anyway, history's going to slip me here, but it was like 700s. Anyway, those times you truly had peasants. You had this social gap of like, hey, wealth was a real thing that you didn't have access to a lot of things. I mean, we've got healthcare, we've got gyms. My daughter asked me the other day, Dad, are we rich? I'm like, hey, I feel very rich. Like, believe me. She goes, well, we don't have a lake house. And I'm like, if you want a lake house, I get you one. Look, I'll go on Airbnb right now. I'll get you one on Lake Como.
Very
You want,
easy. Very
you want to go to
easy.
Lake Como? I got a
Yeah.
lake house.
Yeah.
You want You want to go to Cabo? I get you a Cabo lake house. You want to go to New York? I got a condo in New York. That's amazing. That is like, if that doesn't blow your mind, that you don't have to be a multimillionaire, a 1%, or a billion to have access to the same things that they have.
Very good point.
We should all be so thankful that we're living in this age right now.
Yeah,
We are so wealthy and we don't even know it.
that's so true.
I mean, listen, that blew, look, when I had that revelation, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, listen, Jeff Bezos and I are going and grabbing coffee. We're coming back to our living rooms. Now, my living room's a lot smaller, but his is a lot larger. But we're still having the same communion with friends, having conversations on the couch, watching TV. If he wants to go to the beach, I go to the beach. If he want to go to the gym, I go to the gym. If you want to go to the movies, like all the things. And he can fly private. And by the way, I can fly private. Like I've taken private jets, right? It cost me an arm and a leg to do it, but we can do it. So the access that we have today in driving fancy cars, you want to rent a car on Turo, go rent a Porsche 911. It'll cost you about $1,800, $2,000 for the weekend, but you can have the fancy car. And you don't have to maintain it for the rest of the year. You can just have it for that weekend. You can have lake houses, beach houses all over the world. You have access to so much today. That's wealth. That's crazy.
I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, Craig, because you know, I've dibbled and dabbed. I should say dibbled and dab. I've studied, trading houses. No, I'm sorry, trading cars and watches. And you don't really have to spend the monies that people are generally spending for these things, you know?
Yeah,
And it's another wealth transfer issue. So I mean, like, you're spot on how people are going about um, just every day thinking that they don't have it like
you
other
have
people.
access.
All you have to do is just look around you, just take your time, figure out where you're losing, how you're losing, tie into the idea of wealth transfers. And then I know like people like might want to know what a wealth transfer is. I'm just going to say this
Please.
really quickly. A wealth transfer is the dollar plus the interest one would have gained had they been able to keep it. So once it's gone, it's never coming back. It's gone forever, just so we know. And in order to be wealthy dentists, we have to stop the wealth transfers. Wouldn't you say?
No. Well, that's a big one for me is, just knowing that if you can get the financial education, which obviously you provide, financial education is where it starts first. That's where it started for me. I lived a life of abundance. I had a penthouse that I had downtown Dallas. I lived an extravagant lifestyle, driving expensive cars. And by the way, a lot of maintenance, a lot of payments, a lot of, right? Like tires and oil changes and, you know, maintenance, right? And you have a house, a lake house in, Rockwall, and you've got a house over here. It's like you've got to maintain all these things. And yes,
That's right.
you're building
That's
some equity.
right.
You're building equity, but man, I was a slave to those things.
That's right.
Here I am working my ass off just to keep those things. And meanwhile, I could have taken that money and invested it somewhere else, kept it, figured out how to make that money make money in a different way where I didn't have to maintain so much and be a slave to owning them, right?
That's
Like
right.
it's what they say, like,
It's mine.
when you own things, they own you,
That's right.
you
That's
know?
so true.
So how do you do that in a way that makes sense? And I just believe that one of those is getting the stigma away from saying, "Hey, listen, oh, I didn't make it. I don't have a lake house. I don't have a beach house. I don't have a Porsche. I don't have this." You have access to all of those things, including boats. You can rent boats. You can rent planes. You can do all of these things and not have to have the burden of purchasing, maintaining them, but use your dollars wisely, and that's where I found the balance to be. But I also had to figure out I actually have to have some type of money generating revenue to support some of these things. You can't, I mean, listen, not everybody, people are sometimes just looking for healthcare first, right? They can't even afford to rent a Porsche, right? So start with the basics, like get yourself out there, start earning a living, get your health care figured out, get the basics figured out, food on the table, provide for the family. And then when you get into a point where you can start to make some investments, just do it wisely. Don't get to that point where you start to make more money and then just spend it. You know, it's like, wow, you've got all this extra money. Now what do you want to do with it? Let's be wise about it. And so make some investments first after you take care of the basics and you can enjoy anything. I guarantee you anything that a Jeff Bezos could. You might not be in the same living room. You know, the size might be a little different. You might not get into the most exclusive clubs, but there's so much out there that provides us today with what wealth really feels like without having to own the burdens of it.
Absolutely, because bottom line, it's an expense. It's an expense that you don't want to have, or you shouldn't have to deal with. And that's, of course, as you mentioned earlier, if you got the extra dollars coming in and you want to have it, you want to call it yours, fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, listen, the question is, what would you say to a young dentist who has almost $1 million in debt, right? And they have a decent amount of income coming in. How do you, are you going by some type of rule? Are you saying, hey, you've got the 50/30, 20 rule? Like, how do you manage your finances and where do you start? I mean, those are great questions. I'm not a financial advisor, but I
Mhm.
would at least hope that people find that in their mindset that wealth is just it's just a word. You can find wealth in the poorest countries in the world, depending on how you define it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And health is a very serious component and in order to have health, good health, of course, we have to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually. Uh, but then having that other component as as you mentioned earlier, family. Family, man, is just like everything. I just smile. I mean, every time I think about little children having their fun, and because their moms and dads are connected and these children are growing a happy life. I live vicariously through children. Actually, when they're having fun, I'm smiling, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because then if they're not having fun.
that's wealth, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we talk about the monetary, and you try to help people with their finances, their physical financial issues and positives, right? All the things. But, when we talk about true wealth, one of the things is truly family. One of the things is, again, inner peace, whether you want to say that's from God or not. You know, if you can find that earlier in life, man, what a beautiful life you're going to have.
Yes.
Because if you can find that early on, which a lot of people can't, a lot of people just they feel like failures, they feel like they're not doing enough, they're not making enough, they're not driving the nicest car, they're not do, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to come at peace at some point with yourself to say, hey, this is a journey that I'm on. I'm working my plan, and it's my plan, right? It's no one else's. And I find peace in that. And I have family that support me. I have someone above that supports me, and that's okay. That's what I'm doing with my life.
That's an
You know,
excellent
so
way to
so
speak.
at some point, people have to come to terms that other people don't matter. Like Brad would say, just do your thing, man. Who gives a shit whatever anybody else is doing? And so I'm glad we touched on that. That's one of the things that I'm passionate about is making sure that,
Obviously, yeah, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah, yeah. There's a good book that talks on uh, the whole idea of economy. And it's a couple of economists. I don't think I know one of the guys' names is Stanley. The name of the book is The Millionaire Next Door. I don't know if you've
sure.
checked that out, but that book really hits a lot of the points that you were just talking about. You can't worry about what other people are doing. You got to do your thing. You got to make sure that you're taking care of some of the most fundamental things that there are to take care of, and family's one of them.
How about this one? I'll give you a wealth piece. And, I don't think anybody should be ashamed of having wealth, by the way.
Yeah, right.
This is something that also can be tough for certain cultures and certain religions,
Mhm.
is that once you make a certain amount of money, you feel guilty about having that money.
Mm.
and I don't think that's a solution either,
That's not
right?
healthy.
But I'll tell you this, when any of my partners in the past, doesn't matter who, including Brad, like now I'm like, Brad's my man. I truly believe in Brad. I'm following Brad. Brad has a great vision for the business, where he wants to take not only his company, but his team, his patients, the care, all the things. And if Brad said, Craig, we want to make up $100 million. I'm just going to easy, $100 million. Let's make $100 million. Now, if that is the thing, if that's the thing, and all we obsess about, all we talk about, all we wish in life is to make $100 million, what if we don't get there? Did we fail? You know, a lot of people will tie their personal worth and their personal success on the thing. This is never the thing. The $100 million is never the thing. The journey along the way is the thing, right? Like if we get the $100 million, great. But if we don't, I'm not any less worthy than I was if we made a 50 or if we made 30, you
Hmm.
know? So that is something that is not talked about enough, that needs to be put out there to say, hey, listen, guys, don't worry about the end. Have a goal, have a target. Nobody's saying that, but enjoy the journey. Make the journey the thing. Make the people the thing. Make the thing all the opportunity that you've created. How about a lot of dentists out there are creating wealth for their front desk, for their dental assistants, for their hygienists? A lot of these dental assistants and hygienists are driving the nicest cars they've ever driven now because of these operational expansions of practices and groups, whether they're DPO or DSO, PE run. So they're buying their first houses, they're investing, they've got better health care. Shit, man, that's a ton of wins. That's
Hmm.
something to be proud of. If
Hmm.
you don't get the $100 million, that's okay.
Hmm.
The target's fine, but don't make it the thing. And
Hmm.
that's what I would urge anyone out there that's trying to scale and grow business and practices, is to be money mindful, be what, like, we want to talk about wealth. We don't want to shy away from that. We want to make money, earn a living, but have fun doing it. Don't hold your worth based on one thing.
Absolutely. Agree. So tell me, since we on this subject, how in terms of what are your thoughts about dentists in general, being able to keep up with their, manning their personal ship and stay in the business and not run away from the business because, they're not getting the kind of dollars, or they're going to, like we talked about earlier, they're they're going to another practice just to get a couple of dollars more, and then they find out that they're still not where they need to be after making extra money. The problem's not there. Where's the problem?
This is not an easy thing to unpack. And I'll tell you, I spoke to Dr. Raj and Dr. G just recently about this. There's an old Indian story, American Indian story, that talks about how the Indians were systematically kind of, wiped out, right? I mean, and the way that they did that was providing an easier life. Now, we could go into the details about what that means, but basically it was almost like social care. American soldiers come in, they provide food, shelter, all the things, and rations, versus them having to go get and go hunt and know the old ways, right? And now, right, like the biggest superpower in the world, and I don't own this, I picked this up, but the biggest superpower in the world is control. If you want a superpower, you need control.
Absolutely.
And so, the US and the government and the military, right, basically now controls how this population is living, earning, growing. And if they want to pull back some of those rations and starve them out, they can.
Hmm.
Because the new generations, they don't remember how to hunt. They don't remember how to grow. They don't want pain. They want easy. They want, bring it to me. feed it to me, right?
Mhm.
And so this American Indian story reminds me so much of private equity. And not to say that all private equity is bad, but inevitably you're going to end up with a larger population of private equity that owns our business than private practices, whereas now it's private practices versus PE. And the people that are not willing to learn the business side, to go through the pain points, to work with other practices in either DPO models or mergers are going to find themselves without control 10, 15, and 20 years from now. And that scares me. So when you talk about this space, the biggest superpower is control. And if we don't learn to get uncomfortable and take our, licks and get back up and keep fighting and just continue to say, hey, this is too hard. I just want PE to come buy me out and they run the business and I'll just do dentistry. That's a big mistake. We need our doctor partners to learn to fail and to learn to fail fast so that we can improve the business acumen of our dentist and they can still own our industry. If not, we're going to end up like pharmacy, we're going to end up like hospital, PE is going to own everything and we're just going to have jobs.
Mhm.
And then at some point, you're not going to have control. Same thing is happening in the NFL. I mean, the NFL is literally owned by a bunch of wealthy people, shareholders that pay. Now, listen, they pay good money, but if they didn't have the players, they wouldn't have the business.
Sure.
So if PE didn't have the dentist, they wouldn't have the business, but they don't allow the dentist to have control. And so we need to learn to get uncomfortable and get into painful positions to learn to keep this within our hands. And when I say our hands, I just mean our dentist's hands. I'm not a dentist, but our dentists need to own these businesses.
And just so that we're clear for those that not, I mean, they may have missed it, you know, you basically lose control when it's at P and when you're dealing with a PE firm. Uh, but to keep control, you want to go with a what?
What? Yeah, DPO, a
Yeah.
dental partnership organization.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And
a dental partnership organization, a DPO, is something that's owned by a dentist versus a DSO or MSO management company. It's just financial institutions that own the groups, and there's a lot of ways you can phrase that, but ultimately, a DSO can be owned by a dentist as well. But you just want to make sure that the ownership is within the dentist's control, and you're not some B share of the stakeholder, where you have no voting rights at all. So
so you not only have skin in the game, but you also have control.
yes, yeah,
As you mentioned,
absolutely.
that is the major piece of all of this is that you got to have control. And that is such an important piece throughout your person's wealth. At any point, you want, at every point, you want to have control of whatever it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And
Well, well, think about this, Ward. 10, 15, maybe 20 years from now, let's just say PE takes over. Who are you going to go to advise people on how to keep their wealth in their pockets? It won't be in the dental space because the PE company is going to say, "Hey, we don't need you.
that's right.
We already know how to manage our money. In fact, we took all of the assets and the distributions from the dentist. So
Hmm.
now you got to come talk to us if you want to talk to our dentist."
That's right.
I've been in a lot of situations where it's so tough and there's a lot of bureaucracy in PE run large organizations that you have to go through channels and channels and channels just to even get contracts and business and all the things. It can be a headache, right?
Mhm.
you know, I personally would rather work with somebody face to face, a dentist, building that relationship, talking about how we can keep the wealth in our pockets versus giving it or selling it away.
That's great. So Craig, when you go out and you start developing these relationships with various dental organizations, offices, private owned dentist organizations, single owned private dental organizations or companies, offices, what are some of the key components that get you like excited about a good relationship with either of those choices?
Yeah. So just recently, I had a chance to speak to a great dental practice here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Fantastic doctor, but the key component for us is not necessarily a metric. So on the DPO side,
Mhm.
on the DPO side,
Okay.
metrics are important, but they're not the thing,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
With PE, it's like, hey, this is the thing. The metric is the thing. And in fact, we have a 3 to 4 year window to make the thing even more so that we can sell it, right? For even more money.
Mhm.
For us, the thing is the doctor. So when we meet a doctor who is passionate about still delivering dentistry, still delivering opportunity to their teams, they're passionate about their practice, what they've built, the legacy that they're going to leave behind. So many of those things make for a great partner for us. We want to know that this is what you were built to do. This is your passion, and that you love everything about dentistry. In fact, we love doctors who have been entrepreneurs and done it on their own because they know the benefits of not having to do it on your own. When they're the entrepreneur and they've got to be great at 25 things, they've got to do HR, payroll, marketing, credentialing, and they're just like, man, I can't be great at all of those things. They understand the importance of partnerships. So I love those type of doctors that say, look, I know this is going to save me a ton of time and a ton of headache. I want to be passionate about what I'm great at. And so, one of my old mentors said, you can be great at one or two things, but you can't be great at all.
That's true.
You're only okay. You're only good at some of them,
Yeah.
but you can be great. So, doctors that really appreciate that support but still have the passion for dentistry, those are partners that get me excited.
Yeah. Support, uh, passion, and the will to keep control as much of your business as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're gonna partner with some doctors that will retain 40% of their business,
Okay.
so they won't be without pain,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like we're not letting you off the hook. We're not buying 100% of your practice, and then it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna be a dentist and I have nothing to do with the business. No, we're going to teach you more about the business. We're going to teach you about the fundamentals, how to run an efficient business, how to get clean financials, how to do credentialing, how to like you're going to and by the way, the distributions and the profits can go both ways. Like if we have a month where we lose money, you lose money too. If we have a month where we make money, then you make money too. But not without its pain points. And so that's why the partnership model is so important, and that's where PE and probably some of these larger companies have lost the attachment because they don't own it. Nobody owns it, right? It's just like the financial institution owns it.
Hmm.
You know, billionaire playboys and girls who are investing their money in these hedge funds and venture capitalists that are, dispensing all of this money, those people are making all the money,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, having to share in the wins and the losses, that's where you're going to find a lot of that connective tissue makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, having skin in the game is just so important. I mean, especially if you want and you have this vision about how you want your company to be ran, and you have some say as to which way this thing is how the system is going to track, and what do you think the skill is going to be? Your voice is heard, bottom line. That's what I wanted to say. So when you have dentist in place, or if you have an idea of a dentist that kind of fits your idea of a great dentist, is there like a time gestation period that you all take a look at, a time frame in which you think these dentists should be, you know, get, what level they should be scaled to? I mean, do you all have anything like that? I know you say you don't deal with metrics, but I would think something like that would be important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I leave a lot of that to operationally Mikkel and Dr. Hughes, but there should be typically a flu state, right? I'll call it a flu state. When we're partnering, when we're merging, we're figuring each other out, right? And there's going to be this time period where, maybe we're not on all cylinders, we're not hitting our best metrics, we're not scaling the business right away. And you can call it a J curve, you can call it a flu state, whatever you want. But there should be something in there that says, hey, we're getting to know each other. And how long is that ramp? Like, how long do you give it? How long do we give it? In some companies, they're quick. They're like, hey, listen, in 3 months, if you're not, you're out of here, right? And some might have a 12-month where it's like, hey, you're going to have some time. We're going to build. We're human beings. We give each other grace.
Mhm.
We're going to get there. If you're the right type of person, we're going to know within the first 90 days. And if you're not, like, but personality wise, right? This is all participation and reciprocal, right? We can't just have people that are like, hey, you got to give me everything in support and I give nothing in return. People have to be hungry for this. And Brad just spoke about this recently. You've got to be hungry. But operationally, I believe at Vision Dental Partners, we have a ramp that is comfortable for most. And so, there should be a J curve or a flu state, but after 3 months, maybe 6 months at the most, we should be integrated and really on all cylinders. If it's just like one practice, right? I mean, if it's a merger of five or six, it might be a little bit longer flu stage or J curve. But yeah, we haven't seen a practice yet that we couldn't merge with and figure out some similar. Now, as long as there's participation on the other side, we scale and grow practices.
How about behavioral testing or, personality testing? Do you all do anything like that?
I don't know if we do or not. I've mentioned cultural indexes, and one of my good friends here in Dallas Fort Worth, Neil Patel, he works for Root here in DFW. It's a perio group. He and I've just become more fascinated with cultural indexes because of him and learning about cultural index. And so, for us, it's just one metric though, right? Like a cultural index, if you came in and you said, hey, well, this person is, XYZ, well, you don't hire that person based on just that alone.
Yeah,
Like if you see a bad CI,
yeah.
cultural index, you don't just throw them out and go, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But that's just going to be one key component. Once you hire this particular person on, this doctor,
Mhm.
did the CI give you a good indicator of what you have today?
Mhm.
So this person, are they showing up? Are they on time? Are they eager? Are they autonomous? Do they
Mhm.
wait for commands or do they take, charge? And are they high energy, low energy? All those things. It's like, did the CI give us a good indicator of who this person is or not? And that's just one metric. There are much more metrics that you have to follow up on, but I do believe that CI is infinitely valuable now, the more that I'm learning about it.
Mhm. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Tractions, but this guy that wrote the book, I can't think of his name right now, but he talks about what you're talking about and getting the right person in the right seat. It's just so important because that person, like you said, has got to be highly motivated. They have to uh, not only be motivated, but they have to have the skill set to actually do that job or be willing to train up to actually execute at the level that's desired by the owners. Is there like an operational system that you all follow? I think the name of his program is ESO, Entrepreneurial
Sure.
Operational Systems.
Yeah, I've looked at traction, and in my old partnership and group model, we actually ran the opposite of that book. Similar, but opposite is the four disciplines of execution.
Okay.
So a very similar operating system by book was four disciplines of execution. I'm a high believer in that book. I love how they lay out operational success and how to manage. And so
Mhm.
or lead rather. So yeah, anything educational
Mhm.
as far as books, I've read a ton of them. I'm reading more and more every day,
Mhm.
but I don't know that we have anything at Vision Dental Partners right now in
Mhm.
an operational side. Listen, you've got your practice side PMS, right? Practice management software. I do believe there's an opportunity for all companies to have an operational means of their business through either one of those books, Traction or Four Disciplines of Execution.
Four books of execution. I got to remember that. Thanks for that tip. So we've touched on a just a plethora of of things, if there was something that we missed, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of things to say. We just scratched the surface. So if there was if there's something that we missed, what would you say the most important salient point would be at this point?
I'll leave it with this particular saying, and I heard this through my church, Pastor Josh at Lake Point. He said, one of the things about the economy and about building wealth and truly being a productive person of society is that we show up every day for work. We don't show up every day for fun, you know? So,
Yeah,
when the young people are like, oh man, my work's just not fun, it's like, work's not fun. Work is work. And so you show up to every day for work. You don't show up every day for fun. Now, if you want to have fun, succeed at your particular position. That's where you're going to find fun. Find the wins. Find the wins every day, every week, whether that's in sales, whether it's in changing someone's life as a dentist, getting a hug, tears, people, cosmetically changing their smile,
whole life.
for the hygienist, improving someone's health and gum tissue.
Mhm.
So, don't show up for fun, show up for work and have fun perfecting your craft.
Agreed, agreed. You definitely want to choose an occupation that you're having fun with, that you truly enjoy, and that you're not only giving good information and helping people, but just by doing that kind of, it's a reciprocal kind of has a reciprocal kind of effect.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you so much, Craig, for coming in this afternoon and having this conversation. We got into some things that I don't normally talk about. I mean,
It was a little unscripted.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of, I was like, oh my goodness, we're going on another level here now. And I'm sure people are going to enjoy this, and they have enjoyed this. I'm going to talk in present and past tense on this because this is up for forever. We're putting it up on, on YouTube. As long as YouTube's in business and all of these other platforms are in business, this is going up, and people will be happier and better off because they got an opportunity to listen to you. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you and congratulations on everything you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. The Wealthy Dentist podcast is built on connections, opportunities, and meaningful conversations that help jumpstart careers and boost the ROI on your business. Is there a topic you're passionate about or someone in the dental community who should share their story with us? We want to hear from you. Email your suggestions to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast at gmail.com, and let's create content that informs, inspires, and uplifts the dental world. Your ideas could spark our next big conversation. Let's make it happen. I'm Ward Powell, your host at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast, thanking you for being a part of our journey.